And good evening. This is Mottek on Money. We're doing it live right here in prime time, the 5 o'clock hour in Los Angeles. Mottek on Money 5 nights a week for you, live on the air here on 790 KABC. We're going to get right down to business here with the one and only Rick Caruso, Los Angeles business, LA civic leader and philanthropist. Rick Caruso, former Los Angeles mayoral candidate, former chairman of the USC Board of Trustees, developer of the most popular shopping destinations in Southern California, including the Grove and Americana at Brand. It's a great day when you're told Rick Caruso is on the line. Rick Caruso, thank you very much for taking the call here this evening.
Frank, always thrilled to be here. And hello to everybody in Los Angeles. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Rick Caruso, of course, a lot to talk about. You've been out front on the smash and grab issues, and then today the big news that Los Angeles County politician Mark Ridley Thomas was sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison for voting in support of county contracts that would favor USC while accepting benefits for his son from the university. The federal judge in the case said the entire community has been victimized by the defendant's crimes. Fisher added, the judge in the case added that Ridley Thomas has committed serious crimes and has not accepted responsibility, has shown no remorse. Ridley Thomas spoke during the hearing today, again contending he did not do anything illegal, but he apologized to his family and constituents for the position in which he had put them. And Rick Caruso, during the campaign, of course, you spoke out about corruption in Los Angeles. Give us your reaction to this big news here today, first of all.
Well, I think it's good, Frank, from the standpoint that I'm hoping that the sentence of 42 months is a deterrent for other elected officials. Far too many public officials behave as though the law doesn't apply to them. In the last 4 years alone, we've had criminal charges filed against 4 current or former city council members. And so we've got a culture of corruption in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, and it's staggering. But we've got to get back. We're public servants. They're elected to serve and not to enrich their own pockets. So I hope this brings accountability for all the elected officials, and they've got a sacred duty to serve the people that have elected them into office. And again, I'm hoping that this is a deterrent and a very strong signal for elected officials not to act in any kind of corrupt, illegal, or, quite frankly, immoral way. We deserve better.
On the air live with Rick Caruso, and this is certainly something that you highlighted during the mayoral campaign. And what else would you like to see done to root out corruption at City Hall? And as you mentioned, a long list now of former city council members who have been behind bars or are behind bars now.
Well, you know, I had proposed when I was campaigning, I had a whole corruption plan to attack this and to change the culture, to hold elected officials and appointed officials in City Hall accountable. And it was something that, you know, was a big priority for me, and I think it's for everybody in the city. But we've got to have a very strong bar, a high bar, and very strong ethics laws. We've got appointed officials at DWP that were arrested and gone to jail. You have the city attorney's office raided by the U.S. attorney's office. I mean, it goes on and on. And so our mayor and our city leaders need to have a plan that's rooting corruption out, getting rid of people that are morally corrupt or that just act not in the best interest of those they are serving. Simple as that. That's their job, is to do the good work of the city and elevate it, and frankly, be people that we can look up to, and not have a line of people that are entering the courtroom and prisons that we've experienced in the last 4 years.
On the air live with Rick Caruso, and of course, the leadership of the city is responsible for the second largest economy in the Western Hemisphere, basically. So it's obviously a very, very important job. Obviously, given your massive business background, it seems to me that a business acumen would be very desirable in a position like that.
Well, I think so. I mean, you would never tolerate this kind of activity in a company. You know, you would root it out immediately and hold people accountable. But I tell you, here's the question that I have, and I'm waiting to see this. I want to see how our elected officials respond to this. From the highest levels in the county and the city, are they condemning what happened, and are they condemning the activities of Mark Ridley Thomas, and are they saying justice has been done, and now let's clean up the city? If they're not saying that, I think we've got a problem, because you cannot tolerate this culture in any form or fashion. And we should have zero tolerance for that kind of activity. And our elected officials should say so and not dance around it because they're all part of the same social group or because they all support each other in elected office. It just doesn't belong in our great city.
Who is the main watchdog at City Hall at the moment? If somebody sees something going on there, how is it even reported these days?
Well, listen, the tone has to start at the top, and it's got to start with the mayor's office. And then it's got to start with all the council members. But that's where it starts. And, we've had a culture that has gotten very bad there under the leadership of Garcetti. I mean, Garcetti himself and his office was under investigation and still is, members of his administration. So that kind of stuff, it just festers. It's like a cancer, and it crawls into every nook and cranny. And you've got to root it out, and you've got to be strong, and it's got to start with the mayor. And we're not going to tolerate any of this. And what happened with Mark Ridley Thomas is wrong. And unfortunately, he's going to go to jail. But, it's an appropriate sentence for the corruption that he did by lining his own pockets. Period. End of story.
On the Air Live with Rick Caruso, and certainly you've been outspoken about the failed leadership when it comes to crime and homelessness here in Los Angeles as well. Rick Caruso, let me ask you about that with the San Fernando Valley being hit with a number of smash and grabs just in the last 24 hours or so. And, of course, the Americana brand saw that dramatic incident in recent weeks, and other places have been hit by smash and grabs. Now, a task force has been formed. You had spoken out about we're outraged by what's been happening. Where do things stand at this point on that front?
Well, you've got to hold criminal activity. You've got to hold criminals accountable. They've got to be arrested. They have to be prosecuted. And they have to be incarcerated, certainly in a way, reasonable incarceration for the crime that was done. But what we have now is, and you also have to give people an opportunity to rebuild their lives and second chances. I fully support that. But you can't even get there unless you hold criminals accountable for the acts that they do. And what we have in this county, everybody needs to understand this, is we've got a zero bail policy. Somebody gets arrested for felonies, not misdemeanors, felonies. They get arrested, they get charged, they get released. And that's just wrong. And so you have this cycle that keeps going on. These smash and grab robberies, these are very organized groups of people. It's akin to organized crime. It needs to be treated as organized crime. Again, we should have zero tolerance for it. I think the tax is a great move on Mayor Bass's part, but it's only part of the answer, because unless you have the laws changed and you're enforcing laws, it doesn't matter. The police are doing their job. The DA needs to make sure they get convicted, and we need to make sure they don't get released. There has to be consequences.
Is there any sign that the law is going to be changed anytime soon? In the meantime, we're seeing these horrific incidents in front of children and shoppers at various places here, and it's just unbelievable what's going on.
I hear some talk. I've been talking to the district attorney's office behind the scenes, and time will tell. I don't know, Frank. Time will tell. I think that many of these policies that we've had, maybe well-intended, went way too far, and we are paying dearly the consequences are from very, very bad policies that allow these things to happen, this criminal activity to happen. You just can't have it. I think it's going to take people in this city to raise their voices, calling up their council members, calling the mayor's office, calling the district attorney's office, and saying we're not going to tolerate it. We want to change. And the cops, God bless them, are working their tails off to apprehend people, and it's frustrating to local law enforcement, LAPD, Glendale PD, Beverly Hills PD. They arrest, they turn it over to the district attorney's office. They either don't get prosecuted, or if they do get prosecuted, they get released because of no bail.
Unbelievable. And hopefully that'll change soon. Everyone's certainly rooting for change among the business people I talk to, including yourself, Rick Caruso. And let me ask you this regarding the homeless situation. What do you see out there at the moment, and what are your thoughts about how this whole situation, this crisis, continues to evolve?
Well, it's disheartening. We've got, obviously more and more people living on the streets. The last count went up 10%. The path to this, and I think we had a very good plan in our campaign. I know we had a good plan that would have worked. You've got to build housing. You've got to build a lot of housing, and you've got to have services wrapped around that housing for those dear people that need mental health services and also need drug addiction services. And we've got to get the drugs off the street. We have to enforce the laws because L.A. has become a place, if you want to get drugs,
You loved Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now get to know her on Give Them Lala.
Is it weird having a million things to talk about and the only thing he wanted to talk about is Bravo?
Yes, and it's always weird. It's like when I went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and thought that this was my chance to make a change, and they were like, well, enough about change. Stand up. And then I have so many questions for Howie that had nothing to do, and he was like, so scandalous.
Give Them Lala, wherever you listen.
Real solutions to end hunger do exist, and you can be part of the solution. Millions of people face hunger around the world each and every day. At nonprofit Rise Against Hunger, we're working to alleviate global hunger by targeting its root causes and supporting people in communities worldwide, like children in early childhood development centers in South Africa. Rise Against Hunger supports these children's nutritional needs and access to education by providing meals at the center. Education and nutrition create opportunities for their bright futures. As the children at Morning Star Center in South Africa say,
We are the stars. We are the future of tomorrow.
these children are the future, and you can support their futures by ensuring children and families around the world have the nutrition they need. It starts with a meal, and it starts with you. Provide urgent support and help alleviate global hunger at riseagainsthunger.org/future.
can easily buy it on the streets. And I was down at Skid Row with my family a couple of weeks ago, working at a school that we support down there in the middle of this sea of inhumanity. And Frank, my God, it's gotten worse. And we can't allow it. And there's a path here. It can get fixed. And we've got to have the courage and the will and the determination to do it. But you've got to get people inside sustained housing and give them the services they need. Other cities are doing it. We need to do it.
One thing that may come as a surprise, and I know we talked about this in the past as well, but it's hard to believe that some of the children in the schools in the downtown area, in fact, a large percentage of them actually are homeless that are going to the schools in that area, right?
There's a lot of kids that are homeless in families. It's one of the largest growing populations. And that's why you've got to get more housing built. You've got to get affordable housing built. You've got to get housing for the homeless built. And we're not doing it. We've got to ease the regulations and restrictions in the city and the county and motivate the private investment to come in and start building. And it's an easy thing to do. It's not complicated. And if anybody's telling you it's complicated, that's because they don't understand how to do it. And there's so many cases around the country that cities are leaning in and building and doing a great job at it. We should be doing the same.
And before I let you off the hook, we heard from the Fed chairman last week. Inflation's still a big issue. How do you see business here at the moment?
The consumer is still strong. You saw the July numbers, Frank. The number was up in terms of consumer spending. And so we're seeing that on our properties. We're not seeing a pullback yet. But I got to tell you, I think it's going to happen because, everybody's expenses are higher between inflation and interest rates. And we've had a lot of people with a lot of savings, but they're going to, at some point, start pulling back. So I'm worried about that. I would love to see the Feds just pause for a while. I've said that. And let's see what happens with inflation. Obviously, we've got to get inflation controlled, but I don't like seeing interest rates at the levels they are. And certainly I don't like to see them go higher. But for now, the economy is strong and people are spending money. But I know small businesses are really suffering from increased expenses and increased costs of interest rates. And I worry about small businesses in our region and how they could cope with crime, the homeless outside their doors, and increasing cost. It's going to have a terrible impact.
Well, the entire business community looks up to you, and thank you very much for your time. As always, wish we had even more time here, but hopefully get a chance to speak with you again very, very soon. Rick Caruso, thank you very much for taking the call. We wish you a wonderful evening. All the best to you and your family, and Hudson, too, if he's with you there here at the moment.
He will be soon, Frank. Thanks for having me on. God bless you. God bless L.A.
Thank you very much, Rick Caruso, for joining us live here this evening on Mottek on Money on 790 KABC. Friends, looking for legal help you can trust? Look no further than attorney Clark Fielding and the Fielding Law Team, your go-to destination for top-notch personal injury legal representation. Fielding Law understands that life can take unexpected turns and you need a strong legal team to stand by your side. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault and need help with a personal injury claim to obtain justice, Fielding Law is here to fight for you. Accidents happen, but you don't have to face the aftermath alone. Fielding Law's experienced attorneys are here to guide you through the legal process and ensure you get the compensation you deserve. Medical bills piling up, lost wages due to injury? Don't worry. Fielding Law specializes in personal injury cases and works tirelessly to recover your losses so you can focus on healing. The Fielding Law Team has a proven record of success. They've helped countless clients secure fair settlements and win in court. You can trust Fielding Law to provide you with the best legal representation possible. If Fielding Law takes your case, Clark and his team of sharks will personally work with you, fighting hard for you to receive all the compensation the law allows. Call Fielding Law for a free case evaluation. It costs you nothing to get that honest opinion. And do what I did, put Clark Fielding's number in your phone under the word accident, 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek on Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good evening. Stocks moving higher today to kick off the new week. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ trying to beat back the worst monthly performance we've seen since December. It's been a rough month of August, in case you hadn't noticed. Following Friday's cautious comments from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell in his Jackson Hole speech on Friday, the Dow came in for a closing gain today of 213 points, settling at 34,560. The S&P 500 moved up 28 at 4,433, and the NASDAQ moved up 114 points at 13,705. Stocks moving up, picking up where they left off on Friday after Fed Chairman Powell indicated, well, the Fed policymakers still deciding what to do next about possibly further tightening monetary policy, meaning higher interest rates. Investors, meanwhile, choosing to focus on the more dovish aspects of Powell's Jackson Hole speech, according to MarketWatch. Looking past his additional comments that inflation remains too high and policymakers are ready to further hike rates if necessary. The chairman's speech at the Fed's annual summit in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, provided the stock market a short-term green light to press higher, according to one economic strategist and managing director at Capital Securities Management. The Fed will be paying close attention to the report set to be released this week. It's a preferred inflation measure. The July Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index will be coming out on Thursday, followed by the August non-farm payrolls report on Friday. And looks like that is going to be the next big event as far as the economic news this week, and we could see some market reaction. The Fed chairman kept the possibility of further rate hikes firmly on the table during his Jackson Hole speech, as inflation remains above its 2% target, and the Fed is committed to that target. The month of August, meanwhile, winding down now with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ down so far this month by about 3.5 for the S&P 500 and down 4.5 for the NASDAQ, on track for their worst monthly performances since December, when they ended down by 5.9% for the S&P 500 and 8.7% for the NASDAQ. We're watching bond yields easing a bit today, with the yield on the 10-year note down today to 4.21%. The rise in those benchmark bond yields have sent mortgage rates to 20-year highs recently. We're also watching what's happening in China, with the Chinese stocks moving up after the finance ministry in China and the country's stock market regulator rolled out new measures to spark buying interest in stocks in China, such as cutting a tax on stock trades and limiting sales by big shareholders in companies that have not handed out enough dividends. Among the movers today, shares of Rite Aid up by 8.2%, coming off the worst one-day performance ever for that stock. The sell-off followed a report in the Wall Street Journal on Friday that Rite Aid was preparing a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing to address mass federal and state lawsuits that resulted from its alleged role in the sale of opioids. Of course, Rite Aid has also been impacted by the epidemic of shoplifting out there, and some Rite Aid stores in Los Angeles area have closed. Shares of Dow component 3M ended higher by about 5.2% after the Wall Street Journal reported 3M was nearing agreement on a roughly $5.5 billion plan to settle more than 300,000 lawsuits over defective military earplugs. Shares of Hawaiian Electric Industries, this is a company that's been in the spotlight following that horrific firestorm in Hawaii. The stock was up nearly 45% today after the electric company responded to a lawsuit filed by Maui County over the deadly fires in Hawaii, calling the suit factually and legally irresponsible. We're also watching the American Depository receipts for Abcam down about 4% after the company agreed to be acquired by Danaher Corporation for $24 a share in cash in a deal that values the maker of antibodies and reagents for drug discovery efforts at about $5.7 billion, including debt. Taking a look at what else is happening with the price of oil, for example, which we watch very closely as gas prices continue to rise here in Southern California. Oil right now hovering just above $80 a barrel. Gold at the moment at $19.49 an ounce. Taking a look at the cryptos here now, we see Bitcoin up 124 at 26,095. Ethereum up 7 at 1,653. And let's see if we can bring up Dogecoin here. The Dogecoin price today at 6 cents. Folks, Innovation Refunds has been helping small businesses that qualify get a business payroll tax refund through the Employee Retention Credit, also known as the ERC. It's Frank Mottek here. The ERC is a tax refund for businesses that kept employees on payroll for parts of 2020 and 2021. If you own a business with more than 5 employees, you could have money waiting to be claimed. The ERC tax filing is very complex. Innovation Refunds, independent tax attorneys, help your businesses claim, stay compliant with IRS regulations and guidelines. If your business faced challenges during the pandemic that it would not have had without pandemic government orders, you may be eligible for a substantial refund. Go to innovationrefunds.com to see if you qualify. Innovation Refunds has hundreds of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, Google, and they're accredited by the BBB. There's no upfront fee. They don't get paid unless you get paid. Innovationrefunds.com or call 1-843-REFUNDS. That's 1-843-REFUNDS. Innovation Refunds does not provide tax or legal advice. They work with an independent network of tax professionals and will share information with them to evaluate and process your claims. Terms and conditions apply. Will the death tax finally get repealed? Let's find out now. Susan Shelley joining us live now, columnist for the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis radio show, heard Monday nights right here on 790 KABC. Susan Shelley, thank you very much for taking the call. This is the so-called death tax. A lot of people were confused by it when it was passed by voters, and certainly the impact has been tremendous on pretty much destroying generational wealth, home transfers, and so forth. Give us an update on this very important issue here.
Well, you are so right. You know, hidden inside the fine print of Proposition 19 in 2020, people thought that was all about protecting wildfire victims and seniors who wanted to move to a new home, and it was, and it did, and that's fine. But it also had the biggest property tax increase in the history of California on the backs of people who have just lost their parents. And this is just unspeakable. It's so horrible. People inherit property, and it's reassessed to market value, and the property taxes can quadruple and be completely unaffordable. So what we are doing is an initiative. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association filed an initiative to put something on the ballot in November 2024 that repeals that death tax and puts back the rules that we had before, where parents and children could transfer property without reassessment. So everybody can download the petition at home and print it at home, and it's legally valid. So if you have a home printer, go to repealthedeathtax.com and print out the petition and sign it and send it back. We need 1 million signatures, and we can get this on the ballot.
All right. Sounds like the procedure has been streamlined then. It sounds pretty easy. Could you mention it again? What's the easiest way to get this signed and put in there so this works this time?
It is so easy. You just go to repealthedeathtax.com, repealthedeathtax.com, and click the link that says download the petition. and you will get a 4-page PDF file that has complete instructions and the officially required top funders list that shows that Howard Jarvis is paying for it. And then you have the petition. And it's very easy to fill it out. And then you fill out the little declaration of circulator at the bottom, which says that I'm the person that just signed this. I hereby announce that I am actually the person that I said I am. And then you put it in an envelope and you mail it back. There's even a little label that you can clip out on the instructions, and you don't even have to rewrite the address. You just tape it to an envelope and send it back.
And certainly since we last spoke, there have probably been even more heartbreaking examples about how this has impacted Californians here. What other stories can you share with us that this negative impact of this proposition has had on the hardworking people here in California?
You know, some of the worst stories involve duplexes and fourplexes and small apartment buildings where a family member has rented out at a favorable rate the other units to friends or family members. And then when the parents pass away and the property is inherited, any unit that is not owned by the child who inherits it, that's not occupied rather by the child who inherits it, is reassessed. So even if you live in the fourplex, 3 of those units, 3/4 of the building will be reassessed to market value, which is a huge tax increase. And then everybody ends up getting evicted because it's not a sustainable financial proposition any longer to give them that discounted rent. So it's terrible for tenants. It's terrible for people who have invested their life savings in a small amount of real estate. It's terrible for small businesses where maybe you have a family that has built up a restaurant over 2 generations. And when it's inherited, that property is now much more valuable than it was before, and it's reassessed to market value, and that tax bill is crushing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the realtors had supported this proposition, right? What were they thinking?
Well, the California Association of Realtors in Sacramento, this is not the realtors that you know in your neighborhood. This is the official lobbying office in Sacramento. They made a deal because they wanted that portability where seniors could move to a new home 3 times. You already could move once, but they wanted it to be 3 times. And it allows seniors to keep their old tax bill and take it with them, which is great. That's fine. But in order to get the legislature to go along with that and not fight them on it, they made this deal to slip through this huge tax increase because the legislature just wants to raise your taxes wherever they can. And, people did not know that it was doing this. And the letters that they started getting almost immediately, because it took effect just a couple of months after the election, the letters they started getting from the assessor's office were causing people just tremendous anguish. You've inherited this house. Are you going to move into it? If you don't move into it, it's going to be reassessed. And letters like this are coming in the mail with the sympathy cards. It's horrible. It has to be fixed.
That is really something. So what happens if you ignore those letters? I have to tell you, some people have told me that they're in that situation and, they didn't hear from anybody. And, what do those people do?
Well, you have 1 year from the date of transfer, which if it's an inheritance is the day of death. You have 1 year to fill out the correct paperwork and move into the property as your principal residence if it was your parents' principal residence. And if you don't do that, it will be reassessed to market value and you don't get your old assessment back no matter what you do. But the Repeal the Death Tax Act, our initiative from Howard Jarvis, is retroactive. So anyone who was reassessed for a parent-child transfer while this was in effect, it started February 16th of 2021, anybody who got nailed by this will be able to fill out a form and apply to get their original Prop 13 controlled value back again. So it is retroactive in that sense. If you got burned by this, you will get your old assessment back.
All the more reason to repeat that important information you provided at the beginning here, Susan Shelley, about how to easily download that. RepealTheDeathTax.com. Is that right? Give it to us one more time here, please.
That's correct. RepealTheDeathTax.com. It's a 1-page petition. It fits on a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You can print it on your home printer and is completely legally valid. Just fill it out and send it in.
All right. So don't want to leave anything to chance this time around. It's absolutely imperative that this get corrected following this nightmare for people who were really duped. The petition advertising certainly that needs to be looked at too, don't you think?
You know, I wish it was illegal to mislead the voters because, boy, we'd have a lot of people in prison for it, and that would be a good thing. But it's unfortunately not illegal to mislead the voters, and it happens all the time. So, you know, people can really – the best way to fight back is to join the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association at hjta.org, and then you'll be kept informed about some of these things before it's too late. And you can call your legislators and you can say, what are you doing? And make them know that you know about it. And sometimes that's enough to scare them off.
Thanks for speaking up for the taxpayers here in Southern California. Susan Shelley, columnist for the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis radio show, heard Monday nights right here on 790 KABC. Susan, thank you very much for taking the call and providing us with that important information here tonight.
Thank you, Frank. Always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Susan Shelley. Folks, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. QC Kinetics can change your life. You can live again without that chronic joint pain and without drugs or surgery. It's Frank Mottek here. QC Kinetics is advanced regenerative medicine. They take your body's own concentrated healing properties and put them right into your joint to restore and repair that damaged tissue that's causing all that horrible pain. The patient satisfaction reports are astonishing. Finally, a real alternative to the old ways of dealing with pain. And unlike surgery, there is no downtime with QC treatments. If you have constant pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, or back, you need to call and get a free consultation from the medical professionals at QC Kinetics today. Imagine this fall moving around pain-free, doing the things you love again, walking, hiking, playing with grandkids, you name it. Call QC Kinetics and see how the latest advances in precision regenerative medicine can attack your pain and bring you lasting relief. QC Kinetics, locations in Glendale, the city of Orange, Mission Viejo, and now also in Costa Mesa. Call 213-997-PAIN. 213-997-PAIN. Again, that's 213-997-PAIN. Mottek on Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good evening. Lots to talk about tonight with more smash and grabs. This time, a bunch of them in the San Fernando Valley in the last 24 hours or so. Also getting word that Los Angeles County politician Mark Ridley Thomas was sentenced today to 3 years and 6 months in federal prison for voting in support of county contracts that would favor USC while accepting benefits for his son from the university. The judge in the case said that during the sentencing hearing inside a packed downtown L.A. courtroom, the entire community has been victimized by the defendant's crimes. The judge added that Ridley Thomas has committed serious crimes, has not accepted responsibility, and has shown no remorse. Ridley Thomas did speak during the hearing and again contended he did not do anything illegal but apologized to family and constituents for the position in which he had put them. The former state lawmaker, city councilman, and county supervisor was ordered to report to prison on November 13th. Joining us live now, the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former Los Angeles City Council member and longtime LAPD officer, current reserve officer. Dennis ZINE, thank you very much for taking the call. Give us your reaction to this big news here, first of all.
Well, I am not shocked at all. Mark Ridley Thomas, a career politician from city council to Sacramento to the county board of supervisors, and this type of corruption is not only in Los Angeles, as we've seen the other council members in Los Angeles fall, but we have this up in San Francisco. We have this recently in Anaheim with the former mayor, and Palm Springs had theirs a couple of years ago. So it just seems that politics and corruption going hand in hand. I remember as a kid, Al Capone and all the issues about Chicago and how corrupt it was with the political environment, and they thought that the West Coast was clean. I did 12 years on the city council. I'm a police officer. I remained at the entire time, kept my nose clean, didn't do these activities. But when you hear about this and the fact that a jury convicts the man and he still resists the fact that he's guilty and he's getting sentenced, and not only the 3 years, 6 months, but he's got a substantial financial fine on top of that. So his life basically as a politician is ruined. He'll spend time in a federal prison. And we know what happened with other council members. There's only 15 in LA City Council. And we've seen the others, Englander, Jose Huizar, who's finally admitting guilt, Curran Price, who's going up on charges. We see this cycle. Ray Chan, who was an influential individual at the city of Los Angeles. We see this cycle continuing, and we have an ethics commission, which I will tell you is a joke. The ethics commission does nothing to find this type of corruption. It needs the FBI to come in with their investigation or a RICO investigation to determine this. It's really a sad commentary. But in Mark Ridley Thomas's case, the co-conspirator, Ms. Flynn, 84 years old, she admitted she didn't go to trial. And she's 18 months sitting at her home. She had a $150,000 fine. And Bernard Parks, a former police chief and former city council member, was very adamant in his condemnation of Mark Ridley Thomas. And his article was published recently, how he was very embarrassed, and what Mark Ridley Thomas did was absolutely horrendous. But this is what happens. And some people have this idea that expand the city council, put more city council members in. So what do you want, more corruption? Maybe what you need is honest people who do this job, honest people who are making over $200,000 a year with a lot of perks and benefits. You don't need to have more. We have 5 members on the Board of Supervisors for the entire county of 10 million people. LA City has less than 4 million, and you've got 15 council members. So people need to wake up. Government costs you a lot of money. Government corruption costs you a lot of money in addition to that. And this should set a strong example to people, because we know what's going to happen with Jose Huizar. He finally admitted guilt. He hasn't been sentenced yet. But this sentence of 3 years, 6 months, that's a significant sentence. That should send a rippling effect. But the effect shouldn't then cause people to say, well, let's expand the city council. Let's have more money of our tax dollars going to pay the $200,000+ salaries and benefits and offices, et cetera. It's absolutely absurd. You don't need more elected officials. What you need is honest elected officials and a checks and balance and an ethics commission that does what they need to do to make sure you have legitimate people doing a legitimate job and not on the take. And that's exactly what we've seen happen with this corruption. It's embarrassing as can be for LA City Hall to have this kind of situation take place. But it continues. It's like a revolving. It just keeps on going. It doesn't stop.
On the air live with the Honorable Dennis Zine. And certainly we just heard Rick Caruso blast city leadership and the fact this corruption has been going on. One example after another. And let me ask you this. On the crime front in the San Fernando Valley, we've seen a number of crime incidents overnight, more businesses being broken into, smash and grabs, and so forth. Give us an update from your perspective on what's happening on the crime front.
Well, the crime is continuing. The smash and grabs are continuing, not only in Los Angeles, but in Glendale and down in Orange County. We see it happening all over the place. And it's become a situation, at least in Los Angeles, we have a district attorney who's more concerned about getting people out of jail than putting people in jail. He's more concerned about indicting police officers, which is no convictions, to putting the bad guys in jail. He came in with this agenda, and now he's kind of doing a song and dance because he sees how serious it is and how much crime has taken place. But his song and dance doesn't really impact the fact that his issue is let people go. Don't post bail. Let people go. Give them a slap on the wrist if that, and let them go. And all they do is go out and commit more crimes. There's obviously no fear. There's no fear of apprehension. There's no fear of imprisonment. There's no fear at all. But I will say on the good side is as of the recent publication of the Los Angeles Police Department numbers, they have 9,011 officers. They've now broken the record. They're over 9,011 officers. And I'm sure the next month we'll see a number of retirements. It'll drop again. But you don't have enough police officers policing this city. You have corrupt politicians. You have taxpayers who throw their hands up and say, you want more money from my pocket? And the state legislature is another factor of this. They want to make it illegal for a person who works in a store to stop someone who's shoplifting. Let them shoplift all they want. Well, that's a loss to that business. And the state of California wants to make it a law to make the proprietors of that establishment, the salespeople, a violation. Put them in jail and let the person kick off with the goods. It's absolutely upside down. California, as reflected by what is happening, is off the chart of craziness.
Wackadoodle, I guess that's one word that comes to mind here at this moment here, Dennis Zine. And what about this catch and release situation? Even if they are apprehended, many of the same people are caught again, sometimes a couple times the same day.
Well, they know that there's no consequence. We know that the bail system's a joke. It used to be a bail system. Bail system means you put up money, get a bond, whatever, ensure you're going to court. Now you sign a ticket. The ticket means nothing. There are so many people that are out on no bail, but on a ticket promised to appear. They're not appearing. It's a joke to think that this is working. There's no consequence for stealing. In California and Los Angeles, and again, I'm not blaming the shopkeepers or the taxpayers. It's the people you're putting in the political office that really don't care about you, the people who are paying taxes. They just don't give a damn about you, and they just want to let the criminals run free. And exactly what happened. This isn't happening all over the country, but it's happening in these whack states where you got these people in political office that think, well, let's just give these people the benefit of the doubt. Well, you know what? Let's give the benefit of the doubt to the taxpayers and the storekeepers. They need the benefit of the doubt. And Rick Caruso, I know that man very, very well. He was a police commissioner. He did a wonderful job on the police commission. If he was in office, he would have a different angle than what we're seeing happen now. This is basically a dog and pony show where you put this task force together from the federal government, et cetera, the state government, but it's only temporary. It's not permanent. It's a temporary fix. It's not permanent. You need to be some permanency to save the stores from the continuing smash and grabs that are happening. And this little task force they put together is wonderful, but it's not going to solve the problem.
The Honorable Dennis Zine, look forward to speaking with you as often as possible here on this big issue. The Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member and longtime LAPD sergeant, and now a current reserve officer, more than 50 years of service to the city of Angels. Dennis Zine, thank you very much for joining us live here again on Mottek on Money on 790 KABC. And we'll be back again tomorrow evening in the 5 o'clock hour. You can also bring up the Mottek on Money podcast on demand at KBC.com, 790 KABC.